Kelle is a working psychic medium, an award-winning author, and I got to tell you, just in my brief conversations with her in the lead-up to this, my mind was completely transformed in terms of my understanding of what that means and the kind of work that is out there and being done by psychic mediums. And she's going to give us a window into that right now. So ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Kelle Sutliff.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kelle, and I'm the prop tonight. I didn't bring any props because I am the prop. And I'm a psychic medium. I live in Andover, Mass. I have 3 children who are 20, 18, and 17. And they are, and I'm married to my husband, Tom. And I lived I would say a normal life, but you would say not a normal life. I grew up with this gift as intuition. And when I was a little girl, I would dream with people that I didn't know in my dreams. And I thought everybody did that. And I thought, of course you didn't know who was in your dreams. And people would come through and they'd talk to you and they'd tell you stories and they'd tell you where they were from and you know, they'd have a certain dress on. And I thought that it was everybody's normal. And so it didn't take me long. It was when I was 9 years old that my grandmother passed away. And my grandma Sloan came through to me one night, and she gave a message to my mom, and she was talking about, you know, she had cancer, why she died. She told a message to my mom that she loved her, she was fine, she was good. Well, my grandmother was a farmer in Illinois who planted the, you know, cycle of the land by the moon cycle and was very intuitive herself. So why wouldn't she come through to a young girl who was intuitive like myself? And I remember getting up that morning and saying to my mom, Grandma Sloan was in my room last night. She said this to me. She said this to you. And my mom said, okay, Kelle, that's great. Put your uniform on and get ready for breakfast, you know? Where in my house, and that was just what it was back then. Like, you know, I was raised Irish Catholic, 12 years Catholic school. You know what I mean? You just never talked about psychic ability. You never talked about that genre. But with my children, because of who I am, we're very vivid talkers about psychic work in my home. And my children are very intuitive. They all have the gift of different ways. I'm very clairvoyant. I'm very clairaudient. I hear, I see, I feel with intuitions. And I've worked with it to boundary it and know what I'm doing with it. And that was, you know, in 15 years of working in this field and discovering it, I've learned to do it, as I want to say, the right way. And so it's not the, you know, hocus pocus, witchy poo, I'm dating myself with puffin stuff here, type of attitude. But, you know, what it is actually real stuff. It's real people in the work that it is today. And as my children would tell you, and they know, is that, you know, we do this gig in our house called Psychic Tuesdays, where on Tuesday nights we get together, we meditate, we talk about psychic intuition, and I make them work details. An example, when they were 4, 5, 6 years old, I would say to them, all right, Mommy's thinking of a color in my head. It's red, blue, or green, which color it is. And they'd all say green, because that was in my head. Or I would be, you know, they would have dreams or experiences, like when I was a little girl, and I would then, you know, pull more out of them so that they could understand what that meant, and not to fear it, because I was talking with somebody tonight that, you know what, we with children, if we don't really attune them and show them that it's like your best friend, psychic ability is their best friend, intuition. It saves you in many ways. You know, don't walk down this alley, it could be a bad thing. You listen. You know, don't go, you know, down, you know, you're in a business transaction. You trust your instinct of who you want to be in business with, right? I mean, that's your intuition that's all following it. So as young people, we forget to give them that. And that's where I've shifted my family so that you know what, they trust it, they know it, they feel it. And along with my work is, you know, it's oftentimes that I work in, I never thought I would work in this line of work, but I'm a psychic investigator. So 5 years ago, I work with agency. So I work with state agency, I work with private detectives, people working on cases, local cases, national cases. I've worked with an FBI group called Find Me Too, which is a former FBI agent working with missing persons people. And so, when we get a case, or I get a case, the only thing I'm allowed to get, or the only thing I want to get, because I want to keep myself very naive to whatever it is I get the person's name, where they went missing, their location, their birth date, and a picture. So those 4 items, that's all. And what I do is when I go in, and this will be doing, at my home when I'm in between doing laundry or driving somebody to a practice or what have you, I'm working a case. And in the process of that, what happens is that I call it my psychic press release, and I do a who, what, when, where, how of where this person was missing. And I fill that in, and I get detail, and I get all the detail of where they are. I can tell and sense, because with my gift of my line of work, I'm a psychic medium. I can read psychically, intuitively. So that's like the stuff that you read when people go to get, what's my future, what's going on, should I go forward with this business deal, those psychic hits that I give to my clients. And then the mediumship part is the part that I'm the conduit to the other side. So I reach my vibration to a higher level, because the energy on the other side is when past loved ones come through to give messages to you. Now, we've all seen shows, programs, an enlightened awareness of how this whole gig works. But what happens is that the energy on the other side is extremely high, and ours is very low. And so I have to meet my energy with that other side in the middle as a conduit to give the message off. And so when I'm working in an investigation, I can tell in my energy and my information in the shift whether that person's alive or not, because in that shift of that energy, what happens is the message is coming through for the person who's passed, versus the information would just be general and more psychic information. So when we give that information, we pile it up and we give it off to the investigators, and then they take it from there, because that's my job. It's just to be another conduit role and to pass it on to the other people who need to research it. So I've worked with agencies here. I've worked with Boston University. There's a group of us at one point was the Cold Case Collaborative. It was the person who ran that PI program, Tom Shamshak, and we would work with him, and he would bring detectives in and cold cases and cases he knew about, and then current cases, and we'd all work as a group. What was amazing, when you work in a group of a bunch of psychics working together, we always work individual. Nobody works in the same time. So you write all your information. It's like automatic writing. You're getting the psychic press release that I just talked about, giving that information out. And then when you start to share it, it always amazes me how in sync it is. It's all the same, which shows me the link to the other side or the other information of how we connect and how that information is given to us, right? So in that whole modality, as an example of a story, I was, about 6 years ago, and this is when I really started in psychic investigations, a man calls, I see a woman, first of all, in my kitchen. Now that sounds crazy. Here I'm cooking. I love to cook. And so I'm in my kitchen, and I see a flash. And you'll see lots of flash of energy. You see physical bodies sometimes in my work, which sounds crazy, but it happens. But it would, because I'm pretty ramped up, so I can catch that. And I'm in my kitchen. I see this small woman. I thought it was a young girl, long hair, dark hair, and very petite. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get a call. Someone's going to call me for a reading, because obviously Spirit's showing up early. And I go forward, and all of a sudden, I start to, the phone call rings that night, and it was actually during the election with Scott Brown. I'll never forget that. And this man calls me from Michigan and says, my sister's missing. I'm sure you've heard about it. And I said, listen, I haven't heard anything. I'm all involved with Scott Brown, election right now and here in Massachusetts. So he goes on to tell me, can I have a reading? I said, we have to do it tomorrow. Don't read on the fly in an instant. And so the next day, I start describing this person. This is his sister who's missing. And she is a woman. I thought she was a young girl. She's 4'11". She's petite, dark hair, long dark hair. And she had gone to church in Grosse Pointe, Michigan, and she had been taken on a Tuesday night. And I gave a reading for an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, with details. I was giving names of who she was connected to, details of where I felt that how she was abducted, how she passed. I knew she was in spirit, because this is who I saw before the reading. So and since then, huge investigation that's occurred. The details that I gave at that time forwarded to the daughter of the case. And in the case, I said to her when I read for her, it was back in following fast forward in January, I said, your mom's going to be found. She's going to be found by fishermen. I'm seeing the bridge to Canada. I'm seeing the Belle Isle side of Detroit. I'm seeing this area of where she is. I'm seeing springtime, and she will be found. Her body will be found. My birthday is March 21st, the first day of spring. She was found on my birthday, and her daughter calls me, found on my birthday. 2 fishermen were fishing. Her body was hooked onto a line. That's how they found her. By the bridge I said she was, by the river where she was, and hence they retrieved her body, which has now fast-forwarded into a 6-year case, which probably out of all the investigations I've ever done will probably be solved because of the data and what this family's done. So part of the piece is that when we work, and it's even like I just received the other day, there's a young gal that's missing in Connecticut, and another psychic friend of mine called me and sent me a picture, it's on my phone right now, and saying, can you work on this case? So psychics today, not only do they do just readings, but you know what, in my world, we do psychic investigations, psychics help each other, where they'll say, hey, I have this case, can you help me with this? Give me the data, what do you get? We send it off to the investigations. Psychics today are modern today. So, back in the day, when psychics have been around our world forever, you would have, you could consult to a king and queen, and they'd be saying, okay, how are the crops going to be this year? Give me your answer. How are we going to war? We're going to war. Are we going to win? Should I behead this guy? I'm going to be yes or no, which I can't imagine that pressure. Can you imagine? But today, you know what? We also consult, which I have before, with finances for businesses or consult businesses in general, where I'm hired to work with stockbrokers, or I'm hired to look at new businesses for people or business transactions. And there's people who work in the with agencies, FBI, Homeland Security, and that's a lot of my line of work too, where I'll get, when you get it, you give it, is what I say. And in my line of work, because of what I do, I often get information with world affairs, and I have the right people now today versus before things happened before 9/11. When I was getting, information on that, I was able to, I didn't know what to do with it. Today, I know different, where when I see things when things occurred prior to the Boston Marathon bombing, or prior to, the situations that happened in Florida recently, or the situation in Paris, or the situation again in California, I give the information to the sources that I trust so they can just take it. And then it's their jobs to then go forward. So besides raising all these kids, and all these kids are in college now, I, am, a typical mom, raising my kids, being a part of the community, working on nonprofits for my interest, along with, working in this line of field that is absolutely amazing, because I love what I do. It's a spiritual aspect of it, where it has to have spirituality, and you have to be spiritual in order to do it, otherwise you couldn't. And so I'm able to bridge it. And the cool thing about it is, psychic ability, you never raise your hand to say I'm going to be a psychic medium when I grow up. You never would. Like, who would want to, really? And so, but thank goodness that it's more of accepted today. And the great thing is, even, when I think back even to 15 years ago, I would go to a cocktail party and people would say, Kelly, what do you do for a living? And I'd hide behind my real estate license, and I'd say, oh, I sell real estate, which I did. And I say, I'd sell real estate, and you know what? Under my breath, I'd say I work as a psychic medium. And people were like, what? What's the lottery numbers? Come on, what are they? You know what I mean? They'd all be funny like that, and I'd get a lot of razzing, which I still do today, but it's all in fun. But it's very much so where today, when I go into, a room or whatever, people who I don't know, or even my friends will say, Kelly, what case you working on? What's up with this? What's the deal? Tell me this. What do you feel? All of that good stuff. And we're so open. But we're also open because, you know what? Our intuition is open today. So we're all intuitive. Everybody in this room can tell me a story, I'm sure, of someone who's passed that they felt, or in a dream state, or you hear a song and you're thinking of your mom or dad who passed away, or, the intuition hits that you get, whether or not to go down 128, on this road, I'm going to take a different road because, something doesn't feel right, and you find out that there was a huge accident that you missed. You know what I mean? That's your intuition. That's our best friends talking to us. And that's the importance of kind of how I work on a daily basis. And I guess the most important message of, tonight is really about we all can receive. We can all ask for signs and symbols. We can all do it and trust in it. So I hope that helps explain exactly how my world is. But thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kelle Sutliff, hang out with me for a second here.
Okay, I will.
All right. You ever freak yourself out? I mean, do you ever get, scared about,
Oh, okay. You want to hear a funny story? I'll be real quick.
Funny and scary?
Well, funny and scary, yeah.
Yes.
All right. So I have a book out, and it's called Listen Up, the Other Side is Talking. It's all about my work and examples.
It's like an award-winning book, right?
Yeah, it's 2 awards, actually.
Awards.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I was going to Book Expo in New York, and if anybody knows anything about publishing, that's the mecca of where you go to get your books published, to meet authors, they're all there. And so it's one time a year in June. So my friend Nancy and I are there to just kind of promote our books and go. And we book last minute at the New Yorker Hotel. And we're in the New Yorker, and we walk in, and they're like, we have 1 room left. We're like, okay, we'll take it. And so Nancy is a psychic medium also, and she's a good friend of mine. And she's actually a sketch artist, a spirit artist. So when you go to her for a reading, she'll draw who she sees and gives you the picture. And she works on with me cases because she'll draw the perpetrators for me. And so we then, go into the New Yorker Hotel. And we're on the 33rd floor. And I'm like, oh, I love threes. This feels good. My birthday's 3/21. I'm into the 3 number. And so we check into room 3327. And on the door, it has a big gold plaque, and it's of Nikola Tesla. And so, got to be honest with you, I was a communication major like you were in college, okay? And I was like, oh, I didn't even know who Nikola Tesla was, all right? So my friend, so I'm like, I walk in the room with Nancy, and I said, Nance, I don't think we're going to get, much sleep tonight. And she says, I don't think we are either. So anyway, so we're in the room, we're feeling all this energy, all this kind of stuff, go to the Book Expo. That night I called my husband, and I said, Tom, I said, you're not going to believe it. I said, we're staying in Nikola Tesla's room, it says here in the plaque. And I said, do you know who he is? And he says, my husband's an engineer. And he says, Kelly, he's talking about the electrical current and everything he did, Niagara Falls and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And he says to me, all right, he said, he must have been on the computers because he's Googling, right? And he says, hey, Kelle, where are you staying again? And I said, the New Yorker. And he said, it says here he died in room 3327. So then, that night, I said, Nancy, we are so hosed. You know what I mean? We are not going to sleep tonight. Because what are the odds of 2 mediums checking in last minute, getting his room? So as we're in the room, it's 3 o'clock. And spirit tends to come back and forth between 3 and 5, if you ever feel in your dreams. And so it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and I can feel his energy. And I'm so tired because we drove a lot early in the morning. And I'm like, I am not getting up. I'm not turning over. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And so, anyways, the next morning, Nancy says to me, you're not going to believe what happened. I said, what? She goes, did you feel him at 3 o'clock in the morning? I said, yeah, I wasn't turning over. And she says to me, she goes, I was playing solitaire on my phone, and she says, and I stopped playing, and all of a sudden, it started playing for me. And I said to her, but, Nancy, he would have liked that energy. He probably made it. You know what I mean? Think back what he did. And so,
Wow.
but that's kind of my world. Like, you know, we can go on vacation, and you know what? The Sutliffs don't do well in old B&Bs, okay? Because spirit always finds us. And, you know, or I can be like, go to England, and I swear, I say to my guides, everybody, I'm not open, I'm not receiving. But then I end up like in the dungeons in England in a castle, and that's way bad, you know what I mean? And I get all this information and see spirit, and, you know, but you know what? I don't fear it at all, because I know it can't harm you. And anytime you do have experiences like that, if you get the heebie-jeebies because you've been someplace and your hair kind of goes up in the back of your head or whatever, it's really about, you know, that you're always in control. They can't come back and harm you. They can't do anything like that. And you know what? You just got to say, get out of here, you know what I mean? Go into the light, go wherever. And then as soon as you say that, it's gone. Because they know, you know, the energy, they're not allowed. And I always say to people, like when they have haunted houses and all, or they feel their house is haunted and it's old, I always say, you know what, do they pay the mortgage, those ghosts that are living there? No. So you know what, why would you let a stranger into your home? Why would you allow a ghost in your home? So people sometimes like that vibe or think it's cool to do that. But to me, in my world, I'm like, you know, get them out of there. And even for myself, I've gone on one ghost hunt my whole life, and I'll never do it again. Because it's always, like, I want to cross them over into the other side. Like, go. You're not meant to be here. Go. And so I'm not a very good ghost hunter, you know what I mean? Because I want to send them on their own way. But it's very much so, you should never, you know, as my grandmother always used to say, you should, you know, the one who came to me in spirit, you know, you don't fear the dead, you fear the living. And there's truth in that. And, but you know what? It's all just kind of, like I said, my world of where I go and stuff, but never ever do I get frightened, because I know I'm very protected and honored and that.
Kelle, we were talking upstairs earlier, and you mentioned that a long time prior to now, you made some predictions about the presidential campaign, right?
I did.
And what did you?
Okay.
Give us just the basics. When did you make the prediction? What did you predict?
Okay. Last October, I was asked to make some predictions. And in the predictions, the publicist said to me, you know what, make it light, Kelle, like who's going to be in the primary, who's going to win, who's going to be our president. And then at the time, what happened was I was, and I made a bunch of I saw a lot of other information, which was about what I saw was happening in Paris 2 weeks later. And there was a lot of Homeland Security stuff and all the a lot of world affairs stuff. And some of the things I couldn't even put out in the media that went. And so in my predictions at the time, I saw Trump, Hillary, and the president was Trump.
What's your success rate? Just curious,
then,
what's your success rate on predictions like this?
You know what? You know what? I met recently General Flynn, Mike Flynn, who's his military or consultant.
Yeah.
And I felt a heck of a lot more comfortable after I met him to know that he'd be in his cabinet and he advises him against Islam terrorism. So I'm thinking we'd be okay. But I have very much so, you know what, as an example, I can just give you this and I'll tell you what happened in that list. I had, at the time, and this was October last year, and I saw at the moment, you know, I saw insider trading with other countries that the Clinton Foundation was involved with. I saw it connected all the way to the White House, and it was going to be come out in July, and that happened. So, you know what? I just give what I get. We all have the power of change. If people don't want that or whatever they choose, I mean, we all have power of change. But
That's what you saw.
I saw.
It's what you saw. It's just what you saw. All right.